FM and affiliates across Ghana, including Kalewo FM in Akachi, Radio Max in Takrady, and A1 Radio in Bolgatanga. You can also download the My Joroline app from Play Store and App Store to listen live on the internet. In this edition, authorities of the Ghana Boundary Commission take steps to prevent escalation of boundary disputes with neighboring Togo after it emerged the country's borders with that country aren't well demarcated.
We want to ensure that there will never be a dispute coming out of boundary pillars between Ghana and its neighbors. And we're going to ensure that that is applied to the land.
Coalition of La Youth Association demand parliamentary probe into violence allegedly unleashed on them when they protested against what they say is an encroachment of their lands by the Ghana Armed Forces.
Sounds of some angry youth of La registering their displeasure over what they describe as a military invasion of their lands, holding placards with inscriptions, military thieves, give us back our lands, among others. They marched from the La Traditional Council to the newly constructed La Military Cemetery.
We have details of that. Also, some grassroots members of the opposition NDC back calls for leadership of the party to render account of its performance in 2020 polls after leading member Dr. Benjamin Kumbo raised concerns about the absence of accountability. Meanwhile, the National Democratic Party NDP says the NDC risks having some individuals break away to form new political parties. We'll hear from them in sports.
We'll hear from former Vice President of the Ghana Football Association, George Efriye, was a solution to Ghana's 39-year AFCON trophy drought.
I have that and more, plus showbiz here on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apau. This is your home of bold, independent and fearless journalism. I'll tell you more about authorities of the Ghana Boundary Commission taking steps to prevent escalation of boundary disputes. But first, we do some politics now. And this afternoon, some grassroots members of the opposition NDC have backed calls for the leadership of the party to render account of its performance in the 2020 polls. It comes after members of the party's Council of Elders, Dr. Benjamin Kumbo, raised concerns about the absence of accountability and push for a flag bearer. Well, some members in the Volta region have endorsed those calls but are urging senior members of the party not to wash their dirty linen in public.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that we focus on building a party for now. The NDC constitution is very clear that when we are in opposition, electing a flag bearer is to take place 2 years before a general election. So I think this period is okay to be used for reorganizing and restructuring the party.
Personally, I think Benjamin Kumbo's opinion on the party focusing on the restructuring rather than looking for the next successor as the flag bearer going forward is not totally out of place. But I feel that as an elder in the party, and once the leader of this party as a minister, my opinion is that he should have communicated this to the party executives rather than coming out in the open to say this.
I think the most important thing for us to be talking about now is to restructure the party from the grassroots, reorganize the levels of the party. And when we have a very solid party, we will know who leads the party into 2024. And so I also believe that they talk about who becomes a flag bearer and who does not become. It's not necessary.
You heard there some grassroots members of the opposition NDC in the Volta region. Meanwhile, the National Democratic Party NDP says the opposition NDC risks having some individuals break away to form new political parties. The NDP was formed by some NDC members, including former First Lady Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings, who cited disagreement with the party as reasons. The NDC has recently made news after some of its senior members publicly demanded accountability from its executives on why the party has underperformed in recent elections and what seems to be a departure from its time-tested ideals. NDP General Secretary Mohammed Frimpong says the largest opposition party is struggling because a lot of its members are projecting self-interest rather than the ideals championed by its founder, Jerry John Rawlings.
The small parties have a contribution to make. If you had a few small parties represented in Ghana Parliament, maybe the situation that we are having now will be slightly different. And so we really, really need the small parties. It's just that they should back up. They should look at themselves in the mirror and be able to say, oh, this is where you have gone wrong. This is where you have not performed well, and then begin to improve the way in which you operate.
The final question for me, I mean, we see these political parties very active during the election period, and after the election, we don't virtually hear them on anything. I mean, there are those who say that they're supposed to blame themselves. They are not active, they don't speak on policy issues. We only hear them in the build-up to major elections.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Why? Ask yourself why. They have many weaknesses, some of them financial. Many of them, they even close their offices in the various regions, in the various constituencies, because they simply cannot afford to pay rent. But that is only a small part of their difficulties. They have other organizational difficulties, and that is why we think that bringing them together to learn, to find out, to examine will help all of us.
A forum organized by IDEC on examining the performance of smaller parties. Joseph Akable now joins us in studio. He's just returned from that forum, and he's been interacting with Mr. Alhaji Mohammed Frimpong, the NDP General Secretary, on projections that members of the NDC may break away as a result of the concerns that they're raising and the development in the party currently. So, Joseph, welcome back. So, the NDP claims to be united and sticking to the principles of NDC founder Jerry John Rawlings. What's the party's assessment of its poor showing in the 2020 polls?
The party says it's a resource constraint, and so they are not able to reach out to as many people as they are capable of. But they insist that they are small but bigger than the other parties because they have better ideas, and those ideas, they hope that in the long run it will pay off in its ability to win others to join the party in order to change and bring about change and democracy that they say should be spread across the country. That is the vision that they believe Jerry John Rawlings espoused, and they expect that all persons who claim to stick to those principles, they should, when they have the opportunity to govern, they should stick to those principles.
Well, there were other parties as well. What have they been saying about their poor showing?
And so for the GCPP as well as the APC, the PPP, they all also make reference to the point about resources, but they also make the argument that if they are able to form some form of alliances, it can help better their chances, aside from the fact that they have to focus on specific areas where they each have comparative advantage. And so you don't have to necessarily contest all the seats in the country. If there's an area that you think that the smaller political party has a better chance.
Concerns that members are projecting self-interest rather than the ideals championed by its founder, Jerry John Rawlings.
The General Secretary, Mohammed Frimpong, says the vision of the NDC is to promote democracy and as well as the issues of probity and accountability. Those are the ideals that the party stands for. And they make the point that the ideals of the party. And so when that happens, you have a situation where people who disagree with that collective view or the view that it seems to be taken, that they will now have to move away to form other political parties. And they think that they will not be surprised if they see that happening.
Well, we can't wait to hear that from Mohammed Frimpong there, General Secretary of the NDP. Thanks, Joseph Akable. Now, keeping border and bound neighbours in Togo at already merged, the country's borders with that country are not well demarcated. National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Brigadier General Emmanuel Kotia, is touring the area to engage Ghanaian communities around the border with Togo to ensure any issues are settled amicably. Listen to him.
We want to ensure that there will never be a dispute coming out of boundary pillars between Ghana and its neighbors. And that is why that is the main object of the Ghana Boundary Commission. And we're going to ensure that that is applied to the latter. We will be going on the ground today. We will finally assess the situation. I've been given a brief about how it looks like. But it looks like there is no major problem so far as our work of the Boundary Commission and how communities living along the Ghana boundary, Ghana borders, should live cordially with their neighbors. After all, if you look at our customs and traditions, we've lived cordially with the Togolese for a very long time. There's no need for us to have any problems so far as boundary issues are concerned.
That's the National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Brigadier General Emmanuel Kotia. Head of our security desk, Gifty Andropia, is traveling with a team, and she will join us with details of that. I'll take you back to now.
If the military do that, they can never, and I repeat, they can never take the land from its
tested against what they say is an encroachment of their lands by the Ghana Armed Forces. They want Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin to immediately constitute a bipartisan committee to investigate the issues and call the military to order. The group converged and protested on some lands in contention located between Chado and Airport Hills around the military cemetery to register their displeasure over the military's encroachment and were violently removed from the premises, including the media, on action the Ghana Armed Forces has justified as necessary to protect some military installations. Listen to Public Relations Officer of the Coalition, Jeffrey Tete, who spoke at a news conference a while ago.
That the people of La have never given lands directly to the Ghana Armed Forces. It is the government of Ghana we have dealt with, and it is same we shall continue to engage in order to take back our lands. Finally, we wish to take this opportunity to call on the Speaker of Parliament to institute a bipartisan probe into the events of Thursday, April 15, 2021, in which the Ghana Armed Forces exhibited so much indiscipline and disregard for life and limbs and engaging in conduct contrary to their military code.
The coalition is further demanding that the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, adheres to an agreement reached between the La Traditional Council, the military and government days before the 2020 election to hand back the land to the people of La.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is rather sad to note that the Ghana Armed Forces, rather than showing remorse and apologizing unconditionally, has resorted to playing media gymnastics with the truth. As earlier stated in our press statement on Friday, April 16, 2021, the issues raised in the Ghana Armed Forces statement in the latter hours of April 15, 2021 are completely false and does not indicate any sign of remorse from an institution that has conducted itself in such unruly manner. Indeed, the actions of the men in uniform shows greater signs of indiscipline, uncharacteristic of the Ghana Armed Forces we have known over the years. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is interesting to note that just a day after the unfortunate incident, members of the La Traditional Council were invited to meet the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the Honorable Samuel Abujinapo, to discuss issues surrounding the land in contention. It was our expectation that the Honorable Minister would engineer the implementation of the laudable consensus engineered by his predecessor with the interested parties, which included the Ghana Armed Forces, made on November 27, 2020, after a 2-year-long deliberation on the subject.
Jeffrey Tete speaks for the coalition of La Youth Association. My colleague Kweku Asante was at this news conference. He joins us with more. Kweku, so what more details has the coalition been providing about this particular consensus they say was reached last year about transferring the land back to the La people?
According to the association, in 2020, just before the election, they had a meeting with the then Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Benito Musubio, and other stakeholders support. In that meeting that they agreed that they are going to take back the land from the military and give it back to the people of La. But they are saying that since this new minister came, this minister is saying that they need to hold new consensus building to be able to decide on this. They are saying that they have already had an agreement in 2020 and they want the minister to stick to it. They don't want any new meetings or any new developments to come in the way of handing back the land, and they want it now.
Well, Kweku, we also know that the MP for the area has been interacting with the La Youth and told them not to go on to that land in contention until that dispute is settled. But they're defiant about it.
Conversations in this country does not get you anywhere. And so until and unless government comes out and clearly states that we are going to give you back the land, we are going to keep going back to the land. We know the military have been saying that if they come back to the land, they will have to take measures which may use force to be able to protect military interests.
That's my colleague Kweku Asante there, bringing us up to speed on that La Youth situation on the lands in contention and their concerns. They petitioned the Speaker of Parliament to institute a bipartisan probe into the alleged assault on them by the Ghana Armed Forces. This is the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, lack of public trust and confidence has been cited as the main reason the Japan mineral royalties and development outcomes of the country's extractive sector Chairperson of the Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas, Dr. Steve Mantiao, said though the intention to optimize revenue from the sector was laudable, a series of actions and inactions on the part of government contributed to that mistrust. Joy News editor Israel Lai is at that workshop organized by the Star Ghana Foundation. He'll join us shortly with details on that. But let me take you around the...
Yes, Mefa correspondent Anna Sabit reports that the headmaster of the Queen of Peace JHS at Techiman, Paul Dramina, has been found hanging dead on a mango tree behind his own fence wall at Wiosu, a situation which has disrupted academic work. Here are some teachers speaking to Joy News.
He came to school on that fateful day and then said he had a discussion with the bishop, so went away. That was the last that we saw or heard from him. We are all disturbed.
We chat like brother and sister. I've missed him a lot.
I was his secretary when he was the vice cathedral youth chairman. He's a reserved type. When it comes to meetings or when something is bothering him concerning the school, we call for a meeting. In fact, we are mourning, we are all saddened, and we are...
Let's head back to the national capital for some good news, Hannah.
And as we speak, some 850 security personnel from the Army, Police and Fire Service are on the streets undertaking a cleanup exercise as part of the regional minister's Make Greater Accra work agenda. The municipal chief executive for Ayawaso Central, Alhaji Mohammed Kwei, says the exercise will be sustained until the city is clean.
We shall schedule time that we shall be coming, and we shall involve people around here.
Beyond the cleaning, are there ways to enact laws that will also ensure that citizens comply with the new directive and ensure their environment is always kept clean?
There are already laws, but we are not forcing the law. So now, when we have done this, then we go and enforce the law. So anybody that falls within the line of the law, if you are taken on, you will not say they don't like me, they want to penalize me. No, you see that you are working within the framework of the law.
So from the Greater Accra region, we take a quick trip to the capital of the Ashanti region, Kumasi. There's a development at the racecourse market.
Yes, Prince Appiah reports that over 1,000 stores have been activated at the racecourse market to accommodate traders who are being relocated for the construction of the second phase of the KJTR redevelopment project. Let's listen to him.
A month ago, some traders at the central market were relocated to satellite markets in the metropolis, including the racecourse market. Affected traders were given space to rebuild over 1,000 shops to start their businesses. Isaac Amuinti says the current unstable power supply is delaying their project.
We are waiting for the traders to come occupy these structures. We thank the mayor for helping us to acquire this place.
Some of the traders called on the KMA to help provide good roads, security and fire station at the market.
We plead with the mayor to construct the road.
Public Relations Officer Ifiakunedwa Boaji spoke to Joy News.
Every market in the Kumasi Metropolis has a security of volunteers within the market, and there are already some there who have been taking care of the others who are trading there.
So we're staying a while longer in the Ashanti region, and health authorities in the Setre East District say they are overwhelmed by high incidence of neglected tropical disease in the area.
Yes, the District Health Director, Justice Ofori Amwa, says that health facilities are struggling to contain the disease due to the late reporting of cases.
NTDs is on the ascendancy. We have recorded about 8 to 9 different categories of them. The like of leprosy, yaws, scabies, onchocerciasis, lymphatic filariasis, and Brûlé ulcer. As at last month, we had recorded 1,834, and typically it's among the ages of 14 to 19, and that is the school-going age. And some of our senior high schools is very high there, and they report at a very late stage where there are a lot of deformities and complications.
And our final destination is at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. It has partnered other institutions to pilot an electronic motorcycle that will be powered by solar-generated energy.
Exactly, and according to the senior lecturer at the university, Dr. Eric Enchiofusu, the e-bikes will be fitted with meters using renewable energy and will be charged at designated charging stations at the university.
We have what we call e-vehicles that will depend on renewable energy. So we'll have what we call charging stations. And then we are doing studies, research studies on it to be able to see how sustainable this will be. And then based on the lessons that we learn, we can be able to influence policy. So within campus, we will have some of these bicycles there, and then students will pay and use.
That's for around the country. I bring you back to the capital, and lack of public trust and confidence has been cited as the main reason the Japan Minerals royalty agreement stalled, presenting its findings as part of a report on how political considerations impact efforts to improve governance and development outcomes of the country's extractive sector. Chairperson of the Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas, Dr. Steve Mantiel, said though the intention to optimize revenue from the sector was laudable, a series of actions and inactions on the part of government contributed to that mistrust. Joy News editor Israel Lai joins us from that workshop organized by Star Ghana Foundation. Israel, what are some of the actions and inactions cited for the stalling of the Japan agreement?
All right, so one of the issues raised is the lack of checks and balances built into the country's governance architecture. Now, it talks about the fact that decision-making is concentrated in the hands of a few individuals. So it brings up the issue of a Japan, for instance, and says, in the case of a Japan, it's in the hands of the finance minister, the president, and few other powerful individuals in government. So he cites a number of reasons. But I have Dr. Steve Mantia here with me, and I'd like to ask him a few questions. First of all, I'd want to understand the issue, Japan, you indicate that Japan in itself, the intent of maximizing the country, optimizing the country's revenue.
As a country, we have a huge challenge in raising badly needed finance for our national development. And this has become even more acute in the light of the impact of the COVID-19 on the global economy, and therefore our ability to source bilateral and multilateral funding. In the case of this nature, what you do is to innovate. And I think that Japan is an attempt to innovate in raising badly needed financing for the country's development. So the idea and the intent itself is really, and the lack of adequate safeguards to protect the national interest.
All right. Now, it is going to come back. The president has indicated that the deal will be brought back to Parliament. What would you want to see differently if this deal has to come back so that it can get the support of the CSOs?
Well, we raised a number of issues, and I recall in the run-up to the 2020 elections when the president directed that the transaction be stalled and referred it to the Minister of Finance and Attorney General to kind of review and incorporate the concerns of the CSOs into the transaction document. The expectation was that issues about conflict of interest were going to be addressed. We also anticipate that issues related to the undervaluation of the royalty will be addressed. And then thirdly, we think that to see arrangements such as we have with the oil revenue management in the form of PIAC, a citizens-led additional public oversight through which citizens will be able to access information on the management of these royalties that form the basis of this transaction.
That's Joy News editor Israel Lai. With neighboring Togo to already merge, the country's borders with that country aren't well demarcated. When we return, we have sports and then also in showbiz, plus our Drive Safe campaign. Please stay.
The forest or the ground to harvest any rosewood.
But Joy News checks across the country show the harvesting of rosewood is still
protection of our vegetation.
On the world market, a 20-footer container of rosewood is sold for at least $10,000, which converts to almost 50,000.
Take stock of the report of the Committee of Inquiry
into allegations of corruption in Rosewood trade in Ghana. What's the status of recommendations and the war against Ghana's illegal Rosewood trade?
Thanks for choosing the best. Let's do sports now with Hans Mensah Ando.
I'm sure the last time Ghana won the Africa Cup of Nations, you were now constructing your first words as a baby. Maps surely didn't exist. So 39 years was the last time Ghana won the Africa Cup of Nations. But former Vice President of the Ghana Football Association, George Afriyie, seems to have a solution. His solution is to introduce young players into the team. In fact, he reckons that having 80% of young players in the team would help Ghana win the Africa Cup of Nations.
I have said this several times, and I'll repeat it again. We need to manage the transition very, very well. The Black Stars should be 80% young players, 20% old players. I repeat myself. The Black Stars should be 80% young players, 20% old players. If we do that, the Black Stars will have a good future. And we should take away favoritism. This one belongs here, so we won't call him. That one belongs here, so don't call him. This will not help the Black Stars. Please. These are some of the reasons why people will always call for a white man to coach the Black Stars. But what? Trust me. Since we have opted to have one of our own, please, let us leave him to work. Let's give him all the needed support for him to work. CK Akuno must have his piece to work.
George Afriyie is the former Vice President of the Ghana Football Association, MFA.
Thank you very much, Hans.
Drive safe.
And this afternoon, we are telling you how you as a motorist can drive safe every day and arrive alive when you hit the road. Do you check your tires for leakages or take it for granted? Jacob Abumensa is an automobile technician with Top Tech, and he shares some tips.
The very first thing you have to do is go around your vehicle to check your tires if they are well inflated. Another thing we are supposed to do is to check for leakages within the tire. If this is the tire, you need to pass your hand through the rims to check if they are wet. If it is wet, your brake fluid, it's leaking. The moment your brake fluid starts to leak, if this tire's brake fluid is leaking, it affects all the four. There are a few ways you can check if your engine oil is dirty. One, the texture. This is where we use in checking the oil. You can see L and F, which is low and full. Okay. So your oil level is supposed to be on the F. But when you use the car and heat gets to the engine oil, it shoots it up. So it dents. Let's imagine it dent here. You leave it. The moment you bring it out, it tells you that this is the level of your engine oil.
To arrive alive. And it's time for entertainment. And Mapito Sibidi is here. There are reactions to Marco Kokomonte's appointment as Deputy Tourism and Creative Arts Minister. Tell us more.
All right. Apietus in the mix on Twitter says, at least one of us who actually understands our issues is at the table. I hope you live up to expectations. I beg, don't take your things there. Congrats, Marco Kokomonte. This one is from Mike 2 on Adom FM, who says, huge congratulations. This goes to my boss, Marco Kokomonte. We know you can do it. Godspeed. And the last one from CEO of 3 Music, Sadiq Abdullah Abu, who says, congratulations are in order to the Mark book. Congrats, Marco Kokomonte, incoming Deputy Minister, Tourism, Arts and Culture.
We can only wish him all the best. And stories you've been reading on myjoyonline.com. 5 Ghanaians arrested in Dubai for smuggling weed. 1 jailed for 10 years. Murder suspected is still there. It's a story that you're still reading. Election 2020. It is absolutely preposterous to think NDC didn't collate its results. Afriyie Ankra, illegal miners. Today is giving us Harvest Part 4. I am Emefa Apau. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for your company.
You've worked hard for your money, and that is why we are constantly creating more secure and innovative ways for you to keep your money safe everywhere you go. Experience a